the MuleSoft Integration Professional Developer Certification. I'm going to tell you why you need it, what to study, and how to pass it. We're going to break this down into 4 parts so that you can join me and get one of these. Part 1, why you need it. To be 100% truthful with you, the main reason why you should get it is because of the money. The Integration Professional is MuleSoft's highest ranking developer certification. Because of the difficulty, passing this puts you in a small selective group. It tells the industry that MuleSoft has vetted you and you are part of the elite developers using their platform. Whenever I apply for a job, I write in the cover letter that I am a certified MuleSoft professional developer, and I kid you not, almost 100% of the time, I will get a call back or an email requesting for an interview. This doesn't guarantee me the job, but it'll definitely get me past the toughest hurdle, which is the HR screening process. It'll also help in the interview process because you'll be able to answer questions on concepts and components that you may not have used in your prior experience. For example, I once got asked, what is my experience with the API Manager's security policies? And in my previous experience, I had never used that feature before because we always used an API gateway that was outside of MuleSoft. But because I had learned about it while studying, I was able to give the reply, yeah, that's a great feature that MuleSoft provides out of the box. You can set up SLA policies that handle rate limiting, throttling, or even client ID authorization. However, I've never personally implemented that because at my previous work, we had a separate team that manages the API gateway, and that was handled using Google's Apigee. After making more money, it also helped keeping that money coming in by making you a better developer. You'll learn about new components, you'll learn about what MuleSoft's doing behind the flow, you'll learn about the jargon that you can discuss with other people, you'll learn about best practices, you'll learn about different architectural patterns that you can use. Everything that'll make you do your job better, more efficient, less bugs, and quicker. And the last reason why you should get the certificate is because it'll help you become a better member of the community. On the forums, you can understand more people's questions because you've studied their components that they're talking about and you're more used to the jargon that comes with learning a new technology. Part number 2, what to study. Head on over to MuleSoft's training website and download their exam preparation guide. In it, one of the chapters is called Exam Topics, where it lists out a bunch of topics that they will cover inside the exam. This list is very long, and even though every topic wasn't covered in the exam, you need to know about every single one to make sure that you're covered. What I personally did is took each topic and went inside the Mule document and looked for the section that describes it, and I read about the first couple pages of it. This gave me a solid basic knowledge on what every topic is, why it's used for, what are the main configurations, and how to implement it. And knowing this information will cover you for about 40% of the questions. 20% of the questions I would say are easy ones. If you developed inside MuleSoft before, you should be able to get these. A good way to study for this section would be to enroll inside the MuleSoft U Fundamentals course and pass the API Associate degree that comes after that. We've covered about 60% of the exam now. I'd say another 30% of the questions asked are the real professional level questions. This is where it's not just enough to know how to use MuleSoft and code in it, you really need to understand what's MuleSoft doing behind the scenes to implement the code you have written. It's not enough to know about an FTP transform sends messages out using FTP protocol. You have to really understand what happens to the scope variables, what happens to the threading, or when you're using the VM transport, how many threads are created, or what's the difference between a for each and a collection splitter component. You really need to understand the theory and the architectural implementation behind the scenes. This section really challenges your deep technical expertise. Inside the Mule preparation guide, it lists intended audience of people to take this exam, and two of the roles listed are program manager and project manager. And I feel this section would leave those types of people behind. Unless you have a lot of prior experience in developing in MuleSoft, or maybe just architecturing specifically for the platform, I don't understand how you'd be able to get some of these questions. They are really tough. And the last 10% I would say is the wildcard section. These questions are very specific, but don't necessarily have to do with the MuleSoft Anypoint platform. They're very technical, but you don't learn them from Mule coding. You learn them from web programming or even Java or OOO development. If you come from another web development area such as Java or .NET or even some front-end languages, knowing the architecture and what you're able to do using those languages will help you with these questions. Part 3 is the setup. This exam has to be proctored. What this means is that someone has to watch you physically taking the exam. There's two ways to do this. One of them is to go to one of the exam locations, and there's thousands worldwide, and sit in a room where someone watches you. Or you can take it from home, but you have to have an external webcam. And you have to set up the webcam away from your computer, pointing at you so that at all times it sees you, your body, your screen, and your keyboard. And someone from the exam company will be watching you remotely taking the exam. If you choose to take the exam at home, there are some rules that you have to follow. You're not allowed to leave the frame of the webcam, not to go to the washroom, not even to stand up and stretch. And for an exam that could last up to 2 hours, this is a tough thing to do. You're not allowed to talk out loud or even move your lips because that might be construed as speaking to someone. You're also not allowed a piece of paper to take notes, even though I've heard online that if you take the exam in person, they'll give you a piece of paper. This was one of the reasons I thought that maybe I should take it in person, because I always like to take notes just to jot if I should go back to a question, what numbers to go back to. In hindsight, this wasn't a big deal as the program has a flag feature that you can mark questions to review later. I did have one hiccup taking the course at home, and it had to do with their software. What it is when you install their software and it's time for the test to run, the program shuts down everything except for the one window that has the exam on it. You're not able to access any other windows, notepad, browsers, or anything else. But what I didn't know is that it also shuts down external ports. My desk setup is a laptop which lid remains closed, and then I have an external mouse, keyboard, and larger monitor that I plug into it. What I didn't realize is that the software shuts down all these external ports, and when test time came and I realized I couldn't use any of these, I had to quickly unplug everything, flip open my laptop lid, and use it on the corner of my desk, which wasn't the most comfortable. I actually lost about 5 to 7 minutes before I saw the first question of the exam, and it left me a bit frustrated, which leads me perfectly into part number 4, mindset. The exam consists of 100 questions and you need 80 to pass. This isn't a lot of leeway. You have 2 hours, so 120 minutes to complete 100 questions. There are a few questions that go quick if you know them, but there's also some interpret flow questions which are going to take time. A good rule of thumb I would say is try to complete a question every minute. There are some part mark questions, for example the ones that say check all the boxes that are true. So even if you don't know all the answers listed, it's important to try to get as many of them as possible. The strategy that I used, which really helped me, is that if I came up to a question that I didn't know, I divided it into 2 different buckets. The first one was that if I just needed more time, I think I may be able to figure this out. And in that case, what I did is the computer program allows you to mark or flag a question as revisit later. So what I did is I quickly marked it, and I moved on to the next one. And then when I got to the end of the exam, it quickly laid out nice and easily about which question you flagged. So then you can go back there and spend a little bit more time on each. And the second bucket is when I come up to a question where I just don't have any idea. I could stare at the question for an hour and I still would be no further ahead to getting a correct answer. So in this case, what I just do is I don't put it off. I just say, guess right now, and move on to the next one. That way I'm not sacrificing the time needed to answer the rest of the questions on the exam. A temptation I had while studying is that to take the course when I knew I wasn't fully through the material. The exam company runs time slots that you could take this exam every half an hour, pretty much 24 hours a day. It was a temptation for me to just say, okay, I've studied enough, let me just take the course right now. Make sure you go through every single topic and then have one final sleep so that all your short-term cortex memories get stored into your long-term memory banks. And then take the exam when you're rested, refreshed, and ready to go. And that is my complete personal study guide to taking the Integration Professional MuleSoft Developer exam. I hope you do decide to take it and this exam helps you pass it. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment below. And when you do take it and pass it, make sure to post your certificate on LinkedIn and tag me so I can say congratulations. Thanks for watching and good luck. Peace.